Hi, my name is Shireen Douglas, and I would like to welcome you to this episode of Power Stories. Now sit back, enjoy, and be prepared to be inspired. Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to Power Stories. If this is your first time here and you're wondering what Power Stories is, it's just a space really to celebrate women, for women to share their stories about how life experiences, situations, people have had like transformative and very significant changes in their life. Um, yeah, moving forward. So we're just here to witness that, their story, and to celebrate that. If you don't know who I am, my name's Shireen Douglas. I'm an energy healer and a space holder for women and a newly qualified embodiment and empowerment coach.
Woo, 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 woo.
Yay! So today we have with us the beautiful Monique, who is going to introduce herself right now.
Thank you, Shireen. My name's Monique, and the words that I am using to try and label my magic and medicine, and the ones that feel aligned for me right now are soul activator and grief guardian, because I like to activate people's next level and potential, and I also like to hold space for grief, as I don't feel there's enough healthy and conscious grief support for people who navigate bereavement and just everyday grief. So that is who I am and what I am doing in this present moment.
Thank you. Thank you. So I just want to give you a trigger warning. So there's an aspect of a Monique's story that is to do with loss and grief. So I know sometimes that can be triggering for some people. So please do look after yourself. You know, if you feel like you need to jump off, then please do so. Also, feel free to ask questions, share your experiences as well in the comment section. What I will usually do is towards the end of when Monique shared her power story, I will come to the comment section and see if there's any questions that have been asked so we can answer them there. Okay, so to start off our conversation, the first thing that I would like to ask you, Monique, is what does power mean to you?
This is a really powerful and interesting question in itself. And when you first told me what the question was going to be a few weeks ago, I've been feeling into it. But what I've realised is every moment I feel into it, I get a different answer, because power, even though we can have one big vision of what power is, actually how I'm carrying power in every single moment is different. So I just decided that I'm going to take 3 deep breaths and answer for what I feel it means in this moment, because when I was trying to like get it all right, it wasn't working. So power to me means the navigating and holding in the center of our human and our spiritual components, and then being a great divine manifestation, discerning embodiment in the middle of those two. So that's what I feel power is, when we bring the two and hold them equally and in balance. The thing that's left in the middle, which is us, is a powerful being when we hold the two. That's what I
Wow,
feel. Um, to be a powerful person, that's what power is.
that's beautiful. That is beautiful and really powerful. So when the human and the spirit meet in the middle,
Yeah.
that's where the
And
power
when
is.
you move, yeah, but only when you move
when we move. So when we move with it, so when the spirit and human meet in the middle, and it's that impact, isn't it? That forward.
Allowing the human to move, because sometimes when those two funnel down and meet in the middle, it can feel very hard for the human to move, because we have the subconscious and the ego trying to keep us small and playing safe, and these imaginary fears. So not only do we have to do that component and funnel it down, we also have to let the human move. Because if the human doesn't move, nothing changes. We can't bring anything else new into the experience unless we let the human move and action what the answer was on whatever filtered down for us as individuals, because there's no one size fits all. It's for us. But yeah, it is imperative that you move.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. No, that is super powerful. Super powerful. I never looked at it that way. So thank you for sharing that. The next question that I have is, when you are in your power, when you are feeling empowered, how does that feel in your body?
Um, okay, I think I've got a variety of answers, because I think it depends on the environment, because not every environment allows for your full power in its full expression. So, say for me, for example, the place where this is allowed to be witnessed fully is places like retreats, women's festivals, the Great Goddess gathering that I go to. In the right environment, she is wild. Majority of the time, she's naked. She's drumming. She's channeling. She's chanting. She's in ceremony. She's moving energy. She's earth keeping on the land. That is me in my ideal power position in the right environment. Just in my birthday suit, playing magic. Again, when we bring it to the socialized human component of life, um, she is discerning.
Mm,
She is she's powerful in the sense that she is not, it's not negotiable. I can hear and I can accommodate and we can make agreements, but there's certain things that are non-negotiable for me. I think that's another power place, when you don't allow yourself to be manipulated or coerced, or even if it's not like all those negative things, but even just encouraged. Because sometimes we're encouraged gently to do things that take us out our power. It's not always domestic violence and being beat on. It can be very gently, and yeah, and the other hand of it. So I think it's like allowing yourself to stay true to yourself in any moment.
yeah. Yeah, I can really, I love that wildness. I love that wildness of the jump. So I can really see that. And I can really see that in you as well. So when you're feeling, when you're in your wildness,
Mm.
like, how does that really feel in, like, to be embodied in that wildness? How does it feel in your body?
Okay, so there's like, okay, I'll try and describe, because I have trouble getting how it feels into words. Okay, so if we imagine the column, the spinal column where all our energy centers are, okay, so what happens is, bam, it activates, because it gets excited. It's time to play, because we have to control that a lot within society. So first there's this excitement, it's time to come out, it's time to play. So the whole thing just starts like bubbling, and the energy starts going, and then like as it hits like my womb, my sacral, my heart, it's like boom, all these things just start flying out to like really open me. So then I'll let the elemental energy in, see what I'm supposed to be doing in the moment, and then I just move based off whatever signals I've got from the elementals. It might be come down to the river, or come and play under this tree, or yeah, and then I just allow myself to really be in my child innocence, and allow the universe and my body and just what I think might be fun and interesting, and I just play and I just see what happens.
Oh, so what I hear you saying then is like your embodiment and power is really responsive to actually what you said. Is that the human, when the human and spirit comes together, and then you've got to move. It's that being in response to that, being receptive and ready to respond to that energy.
Yes, you have to move because sometimes it can be hard to be receptive of spiritual guidance because it doesn't make no sense to the human. So you'll be getting
Mm-hmm.
these incoming messages and you're like, I ain't gonna do that madness. What is the point of that? What's that gonna serve? But lately, within the last few months, I've been learning to quiet the human down and be like, let's just see what they want us to do. And if we get there and you were right, I'll give you your satisfaction. I'll say, yes, you did tell me so. But that never happens because it's always for something. So, yeah, it's like you say, being receptive and, yeah, the wonders and just seeing what the wonders can teach me.
Beautiful. So now we come to the part where we're going to yeah, hear your power story that you want to share with us today.
Okay, perfect. I'm just going to take a sip of my drink before I get into it because I'll probably get a bit dehydrated on
Join you.
the way. Okay, the story that I've decided to share is about my journey through grief and how I have used my spiritual and magical powers to hold grief and have a lot more of a enjoyable, empowering experience. And I know these words don't usually go together when we talk about grief. What you want about empowered and like I know, but if you just bear with me for the story, I'll explain how I got there because it's a beautiful story and I love to tell it. So, originally, my story with grief started at 15. I was initiated into motherhood and I didn't even know what I'd got myself into, but there I was expecting. And I was like, damn, you thought you used to say it here having a bit of fun, yeah? Now look at you! Like, god damn.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I very quickly got snapped into adulthood and responsibility and all the rest of it. And I decided that I was going to see that pregnancy through. I'd made my bed, I was going to lie in it, and I was going to be a great mom. Yeah, so I started journeying and reading all the mothering books and this and that because obviously I didn't have the life experience to, feel equipped. And at 26 weeks, my waters broke at home. And I was like, this ain't right. I read the book.
Mhm.
This ain't supposed to be happening. And again, I'd read these books like they were Bible. There was literally like Bibles to me. I was really getting myself prepared. So when that happened, and then I got to the hospital, and certain other things started being said, like he's distressed, his heart rate is low, his breech. I knew in my mind, based off what I read in the books, that when these things happen, it's a signal for a cesarean. So I'm looking around at the people that who are supposed to be in the trustworthy position, the powerful position, those who know, those who are in control. So I'm looking around at them and I'm like, where's my cesarean? Because as far as I know, based off the books that I've read, I'm supposed to be having a cesarean now. They're like, they're just not listening. No one's responding. They're all faffing around, and I'm like, seriously, like, are you not going to give me a cesarean? The books say if there's like something goes wrong, best option is to get a cesarean, get the ute out, give it its intervention, best chance of survival. Why ain't I having a cesarean yet? So this goes on for 3 hours of me being in this position of needing help from the medical model. I'm just gonna call it the medical
Mhm.
model, yeah. And things just not happening. So I was like, okay. So 3 hours passed, and then my son passed because he'd been alive for these 3 hours with no waters. And then they're like, oh, now we want to take you for a cesarean. I said, no, now he's dead. You want to take me for a cesarean? Now he's dead. I tell you what, I'm not going for no cesarean because when I need this cesarean, yeah, none of you is nowhere to be seen, so I'm not going down to I was like, I'm not going. You're not doing that to me now when I needed it, and you could have saved his life. You didn't want to do it, so here what? I'm not listening to you now. So then they induced the labour, and I had to go through the birth. So that was my big initiation into motherhood and grief at 15. And I handled that, considering my age and the resources and the knowledge that I had at the time. I handled it extremely well, and I just had this thing in my head that I would not use him as an excuse to do fuckery in my life. That I was bad enough. At that time, I was bad enough, yeah. And I say, you know what? Now I ain't gonna use this. I've got plenty of other reasons why these bad behaviours are manifesting, yeah. But it ain't gonna be the death of my son, yeah. And I went back to school not long after, still sat my GCSEs, and yeah, tried to hold it as best as I could in terms of not being equipped. I still made some pretty bad decisions. It was only for a very short period of time though, because 3 months later I got pregnant again. So it was a very short window of, yeah, just really allowing myself to be with those things, and I was making some bad decisions in how to cope with it, like substances, and yeah, I had a bit of a wild 3 months in trying to process it. But when I got pregnant again, I was like, bam, another wake up call. What am I gonna do? I've got to step up. I've got to level up again, because the behaviours that I was using to get me through that situation was not gonna serve my new reality, and my new reality was I'm pregnant again, and I want the best chance for this child after the trauma that I had. So I journeyed with that pregnancy. I had a really beautiful birth, unassisted. Well, not unassisted in terms of like with no one there, but I was in a hospital, unassisted in terms of not being told what to do, or I was sitting on like the exercise ball, and they had me like hooked up to this thing, and they were saying, you're having a level 10 contraction, why are you not responding? And I said, because my body ain't telling me I've got no level 10 pain. And now usually when I hurt my vessel, I'm the biggest baby. I'm like, where's the plasters, where's the bandages, patch me up quick, look at this graze I've got. That's what I'm like when my physical vessel gets hurt, yeah. But for some unknown reason in labour, it was just like, oh my God, I'm just dilating, I'm just going with it, it's great. So I had a really beautiful birth with my second child. But again, there were still consequences from the trauma that hadn't been fully processed with my son, and that manifested as a lot of paranoia. I was like, how can I keep her safe? I've got to keep her alive. What am I going to do? Everything was just a bit like the big bad world. I was like, get away from her. Get away from her. Stay away from her. She's got to stay safe. Like, so super, super overprotective. Like I say, at the time, I felt that was, you know, the right thing to do. It was keeping her safe. It was this, it was that. There's always polarity. And the polarity of that was I didn't give enough space for that child to fully flourish, because I was keep trying to put things here and there and protection, and not really always giving her every opportunity, because I was always assessing danger. And I know we always have to assess danger as parents, but I'm not talking about that healthy assessing danger. I'm talking about paranoid, like compulsive, over the top paranoia, which I'm now working on the effects of and unpicking that, because yeah, it's just the polarity of parenthood. Every time we think we're making a good decision, there's always some, like, I've just realised you can't get out of giving them trauma kind of thing. So yeah, that's what I did.
To be honest, Monique, I tell my children, I said, you know, it's like you're probably going to need therapy, just like me. And if
Yeah,
they need
yeah,
to come back and talk, we'll talk it out. It's fine. I can
yeah,
hold
yeah.
my hands up. I'm not perfect. It
Yeah,
is
we're
what
not
it
going
is.
to let whereas other generations, when that happens, their ego gets up and want to say, I did my best, and it's like, no one said you didn't, but come on, can we just have a bit of space for healing here? We're not going all the way where you're going, but yeah. And that's what our kids have got the beauty of, haven't they? That when this happens and it's their cycle again, at least we will be that safe space for you to process your trauma, whereas I personally haven't always had that safe space when I've tried to go and do the healing. So I'm really grateful for that. So yeah, I had my second daughter, but like I say, the journey of that mothering was very much tarnished because of the trauma that I'd still been holding. Um, so yeah, and then I journeyed into self discovery, and I was like, oh, this is great. And then I started doing energy work, and I was like, and then I started unpicking the trauma. And the first big thing that I can remember in terms of the grief is I went to this grandfather fire, and again, it's a ceremony, and there's a fire, and it's basically a sharing circle, but it's held by fire, yeah. And it became my time to share, yeah. And before I knew what was coming out of my mouth, I was like, oh, I put down the anger. Now, I'd carried that anger for a good decade by this time. I was attached to that anger, even though I wasn't using the anger as an excuse to do bad in my life. I held it at my core of how I was treated, how they didn't respond, because basically what they said was, you're only 24 weeks and 5 days, and we don't give cesareans until you're 25 weeks. And I was like, you do know that's only 2 days, then it like. But again, they've got policies and red tapes and all this and that. It is what it is, yeah. But I carried the anger for that for a very long. I was like, 2 days? Are you mad? Yeah. So I carried a lot of anger for a long time about the way I personally was treated within the medical model. Because I also felt that my age played a lot to do with it. That if I'd have been a more mature mom, who was maybe looked at a bit differently on a societal level, it might have been a different outcome, because I'd have been more equipped and I'd have had more power. And yeah, it just felt like a really um, violating situation, and I carried the anger of that violation for a very long time. So I get to this fire circle, and all of a sudden I just started talking about how I'm putting the anger down, how I'm doing this, how I'm going to forgive the people who made those decisions. Because I was like, someone's to blame, because someone made the decision that day. So whoever that is, and I don't know who that is personally, but there is blame in here somewhere, because someone made that decision, yeah. And that's what I'd carried for a decade. I'm going to blame someone, yeah. So I was like, right, and I'm going to put down the blame, and I'm going to forgive them, because, they're just out there living their best life. Probably forgot all about me. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to detach myself from them. I'm going to give them forgiveness. And so all this is happening, and it was really like an out of body experience. And I'm observing it with my other self. And I'm like, what is she chatting? Because that ain't how I feel. Because my human and ego self, like I say, was still very attached to the blame and the injustice and and all those things are still true. This is where I started to learn about being able to hold the truth in polarity in any moment, because I allowed myself to know that yes, while all those things are true and they still stand and you are correct, also my higher self was like, but this, because this is for you. And that is right in the human, but what you're holding on to the human is poisoning your soul. So what about you? And it's the first time that I had the encounter of being able to hold all my human beliefs and opinions, but hold something totally the stark opposite at the same time. And that's where it was about balancing in the middle, that I can have all my human opinion, I can have all my principle, I can have all my value, I can still hold the opinion, but energetically and spiritually I have to release the energetic component. Because when I was holding it before, I was using that spiritual component, but it was getting filtered and anchored into the anger that I was feeling in the human. Whereas if I clear it, I can express my opinion, but it's not charged with nothing,
Yeah.
because I've took the charge out of it. It's about clearing the charge, because what I realised I was doing, I was saying things and it was carrying charge, and that was the problem, because then I'm feeding that back out through my mouth and putting it back into existence again. So I was like, oh, I've got to be careful here. It's not that I can't say the things, it's how I am at centre when I say the things. So then that's where I started to really evaluate and see how you can hold two totally polarized views and stances and anchor in the centre, and there's truth in all of it. So I was like, okay. So when I had that big release with the fire, it really created a shift in how I experienced and saw the world. And I was like, wow. I saw the power in that moment. I was like, okay. So I carried on journeying and doing life and one thing or another. Fast forward to 11 years and I'm back to motherhood again and I'm pregnant again. And I'm like, okay. But again, I'd thought that I'd done so much healing over this time that I was ready to be a mum again, yeah. That in terms of that I'd cleared all the trauma, the fear. And I'm not talking about the normal human fears that we have as women when we journey with pregnancy, but I mean the stuff that I'd carried forward that was now spilling into this pregnancy. So I was like, I got there and I was like, oh, more clearing up to do, because I literally thought I'd done the work. And in this moment, what I realised was, even though we do the work and it is great stuff and we do it, and yes, again, I'm giving myself credit because it is true, that ultimately there's certain things we will never be able to see until we're in a different situation. So
Absolutely.
I was like, oh, I'm seeing this now, because when I'm just on my own, I can't see certain aspects of my shadow. I need certain life experiences to hold a mirror and say, hello, can you see this bit of trauma still stuck in your womb? So I was like, all
Absolutely.
right, I'm seeing you. So I had to sit with processing a bit more fear that had still stayed lingering on. So I was like, oh, okay, this is perfect. And then I had my third child, Raya Sunshine. She's going to be 3. Is it next week or the week after? Within a fortnight, anyway. Um, so yeah, I had Raya. It was all beautiful. I was a new mum again. And then I repeated a cycle, and this is where I realised about the power I am as helping people break cycles, and it's because I've lived cycles. So what the cycle is, I had my first child and then within a year I had another child. I waited 11 years, one extreme or the other, you know. Waited 11 years to then have another 2 youths within a year of each other. So it's like a direct symmetry in my life, because not only is that a pattern, if you hold a mirror in between those sets of 2, it goes boy, girl, girl, boy. So it's a direct mirror
Okay.
and symmetry of how you can hold life differently. And that's why at the time I didn't see that. But when I looked back, I was like, this is how I teach people, this is how I explain to people, because I can just share my lived experience to help them
Mm.
understand the like out there concepts, because I can explain it through my story. And I was like, oh, that's what the use of that is. Um, so I had Raya, and then bam, 3 months later, same cycle again. I'm pregnant again. I was like, you're ramping as if. So I'm like, okay, I hold that, and I'm like, oh, never give me anything I can't handle. Never give me any. I'm gonna be cool. I'm like, I've always wanted 2 kids that are close together, and then started like getting onto it, kind of thing. Um, I had an early scan which told me it was a boy. Okay, so when I got to that moment, I had to have a pause because trauma came back up then, and I was like,
Mm.
I felt, um, it was a lot of fear. I was like, because I felt safe with girls because I brought food to them. Do you know what I'm saying? But when I
Yeah.
heard boy, I was like, oh, I got a bit of fear about that still. So I cleared up all the fear about it. Decided not to tell anyone until I passed the threshold that my first son died at, which was 24 weeks. So I get to there and I'm like, oh my God, yeah, like, look at this. This is great. I'm sailing, like, it's here. It's in reality. Perfect. Told everyone. Go to my next routine scan, 28 weeks, but it was at 29 because of one thing or another. And I'm on the chair, yeah. And it's so funny how our intuition and senses pick up on things. She's doing the scan, and obviously I don't know what none of that screen means apart from there's a head there. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you
Yeah.
know, like the detail that they can see? I can't see that, can I? So I'm just looking and admiring it from my very like uneducated point of view, and I'm like, yeah, baby, I can see heartbeat, baby, beautiful. Then the woman goes, is there someone outside? And I just said to her, I said, you don't need to treat me like that, because the way that you've said it, I already know. So how about we just get to the truth? You know, don't try and
Mm.
sugarcoat for me. I find it very patronising. I don't need that, yeah. Because I was like,
Yeah.
you already snitched on yourself. Your words and your energy and everything snitched on you. I was like, okay, I'm not letting you do that to me, because I also think that creates a problem instead of just being truthful. So I was like, just hit me. I'm used to it. Hit me. She's like, there's a problem, quite a serious one, and I want to refer you to another hospital. So I'm like, okay, cool. Do your little papers, works, and whatever you need to do. Tell me where I need to go, and I'm gonna go. It's cool. So then, as she's doing her paperwork, I'm sitting with it, and I'm like, because all my life for these 14 years since I'd lost my first one, my biggest human fear was to lose another youth. I was like, I can never get through that again. I can never
Mm.
do that again. I'm so scared to do that again. It was like, in my human mind, it was my biggest fear, losing another youth. So I'm sitting in the room and I'm like, just saying to myself, oh, I can't even believe this, because, you know, I'd passed that threshold of safety that I'd put in my head. I was like,
Yeah.
but I made it past the 24 weeks. What's going on here? So then what happens is I get to the next hospital and they're all like scurrying around and this, that, and the other. And then I just hear cesarean. Now, again, my ears pricked up, because this was something that had held trauma for me. The fact that my first son wasn't given full chance of life by having a cesarean yet. So I'm like, cesarean? What are you on about, cesarean? They're like, yeah, it's that serious. We need to do a cesarean. So I'm looking and I'm observing, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then I had to have another like reasoning with myself, because I was like, I'd also built up a big fear of the medical model based on my treatment the first time, and that's what pushed me down the holistic path. So I was like, bam, what, you're gonna trust them now? And I'm thinking, yeah, but true say, based on the information that I've got this time, it's his best option to
Yeah.
survive. Whereas before then, I'd built myself up into this place of body knows best, nature knows best, mum knows best. I'm not taking that away from anyone. Yes, we do. But sometimes shit goes wrong. And I was in this position of, am I going to, again, anchor into my opinions, my principles, my beliefs of the medical model? Or am I just going to sit here, settle into what I'm observing, and make up my mind based off now? Not other opinions that I've built up over the past, but to really just allow myself to hear what my options are and make the decision that I feel is best in this present moment. I'm not going to let anything else get involved, because I feel like it'll kind of maybe make me make a tarnished decision, not one that's like for this moment. So I sat with it, and the options that they presented to me were, um, basically what was happening was, something was happening and he wasn't draining fluid, and he had a condition called hydrops, and that is basically fluid retention under the skin, which puts pressure on organs. And for Jameson in particular, what was being affected was his lungs. His lungs didn't have room, because of this fluid, to expand. They could not develop naturally within the womb because of the conditions. So I was like, I really had to sit with myself, because I'd built the womb up. The womb is everything. She knows everything. She does everything. And I was like, right, she's failing. Not failing, but
I know.
something's gone wrong up in here. I was like, right, what am I going to do? So I listened to my options, and my options were terminate the pregnancy. Don't even tell me that, because for me personally, and I know some people, I'm just talking about me, not about what's right or wrong for others, just how I reasoned it. That I would never make that decision to, unless it was more of a severe disability, or there could be no chance of a good life, then I
Mm.
might think about it. But there's got to be a threshold for me to make that decision based off the trauma that I've been through before. So that wasn't an option. My option was to give him a cesarean and drain the fluid so that his lungs can start developing, or carry on with the pregnancy, and then just have to give birth to him, but they don't know if he's going to die in the meantime, because obviously there was a problem with the placenta. The blood wasn't flowing to him properly, so he's not getting nutrients and all of this. So I'm calculating up all the information that I'm hearing, and I said, you know what, I'm going to put down my opinions about nature versus the medical model, and I'm going to trust in the medical model, because in this particular situation I feel like his greatest chance of life is to give him some medical assistance and help his lungs start developing. So that's the option that I chose to take, was to give him this cesarean and to get him out and give him chance of life. They already told me statistically what his chances were. Um, so I had 12 hours with Jameson when he was alive, and then Jameson passed away. And they called me from my room, and as soon as I got in there, I was like, as if for 12 hours I was thinking there's a strong chance, and as soon as they come to get me, I was like, and then they said to me, we're stopping his support. It might be nice if you hold him as he passes. So this was my first big encounter with deaf doulaing, and I was like, and I was pleading with him. I said, nah, you gotta, there's something you must can do, you ain't looked in all your bank, there's gotta be a piece of knowledge you forgot, just turn this dial, do something, all this machinery you can't. I was like, please, you do something and don't make me do this, because I can't do it. I know that, this is what I was telling myself anyway, I know that I cannot let you stop the treatment and hold this youth and pass in my arms. Are you mad? I was like, nah, please don't let me do it. They was like, nah, seriously, there's nothing we can do. And I was like, you know what, I'm wasting time here, just let me hold him, So I go through that and I'm like, wow, my worst fear done happened again, So for 3 days I'm in the hospital with him, and I am full in my process, letting myself feel everything, because the first time with Dylan, I was in a domestic violence relationship and I didn't get to process emotion. I was like, no one's stopping me now. I was like, let it all out. I was like, all I kept saying was, I don't know, what am I going to do when they kick me out this hospital? I was like, when I got a book up out on the real world, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I was like, so I was in the hospital for 3 days with him, doing like rites and ceremonies. And to be fair, I'll rate the staff, because they really did look after me. Because at one point, all at like 12:30 in midnight, I'm like, is there any way I can get outside under the moon, please? Because I've got to show him to the moon, and I've got to sit with the. And to be fair, they found me a space, so I'm in the hospital and I'm holding him up, and it was a really beautiful ceremony. I didn't even realise at the time this is what I was doing, like rites and ceremonies, because I didn't know the meaning of what those things are. And sometimes we make it mean like, it's a sacred space, and nah, ceremonies in life, and it's not this big thing that I thought it was. So so then I was sitting with it and I was like, damn, not enjoying this, really not enjoying this. We had his service, and again there was healing here, because the first time I had quite a socialised, normal, not so much religious, but it was normal, whereas this time I had a celebrant who was trained in my teachings of the Inca practices. It was elemental, it was a celebration, it was thanks for life, it was beautiful. I picked music, the music I picked was just, I picked one about the goddess, we all come from the goddess, and those who return, that one. I played this one from Maccabee, Spiritual Vibration. So I'm bringing all my culture, and I didn't even realise, and you know, the journey I've been on with blackness, how this all played
Mm.
out. And the one that we walked out the church from was one by Taurus Riley, yeah. And in the song, it says, my nigger, yeah. So as I'm walking out the church, yeah, I know that bit of the song's coming. So I said, you know what, let me slow down a minute, because something said to me, I need to hear my nigger in the church, yeah, that it was really important to hear the full song while I was still standing in the church. And when that moment came, it's bizarre. I can't explain how I felt, but I just was like, is that me though? Is that really me at my son's funeral, bringing the true power and weight of our culture into the church and just playing it out loud like that? I was like, it felt like a really significant, special moment to me about my nigger up in the church. I was like, yes, my fucking nigger is, yeah. So, so yeah, and it was just like I say, it was in that moment that I decided that the difference, how you can relate to grief, because at my first son's funeral I didn't feel like I could go up there and talk, but at the second, at Jameson's funeral, I was up there and I was declaring, and I was like, I am going to take the weight of everything that I have journeyed with through this experience, and I am going to come and I'm going to give something to the world in your honour. That is what I'm going to, this is what I said at his funeral. Now, you met me further down the journey and can see how it all played out, but at the time I'm just there deep in my grief, not knowing what I'm saying yet, but just like, I know this is what I'm going to do for you, son, so I'm saying it now in this place. So then after that I was like, first I went on this journey because what I did was, I was all in my spiritual, but I was kind of like dampening my human. I wasn't fully listening, I wasn't fully honouring, I wasn't fully embodied. I was holding the spiritual and I was way out of body, and I was holding and all this and that, but actually in body. So what does my body do? My body lets me know. She gives me a vaginal prolapse, right, Shireen? And I'm like, what? My box is falling out now after all of this, yeah? And then my pum's just gonna fall out. Are you having a laugh here? Yeah. I was saying to everyone, put me in the skip. From time my box has dropped out, yeah, I am done. What is this? Yeah. So
Oh, stop it.
I'm like, rare, wagwan here, yeah. So I'm like, you know what? That's my body letting me know that I'm disconnected. So that's when I started. I reached out to a friend who does womb work, and I said, yo, I need a healing because I've been hating on my womb for what I've blamed her for, and you know what? I don't want to have this relationship with my womb and my body, because, yo, my box fell out, I went fat, and I shaved my head bald. When I look back on the pictures now, I'm like, raw, look how you did have to go to, like, to find yourself. So, yeah, I started healing my womb and all stuff, and then started going on this women's empowerment journey and, like, reclaiming the womb, and then yeah, so step by step after that, it's just been me trying to figure out, oh, how can I help people? So then first I wanted to do like menstrual awareness, then I wanted to do this, then I want, because these are all different things that I've done, yeah. But then about 6 months ago, I booked back up on grief. I get this opportunity to go and work with someone who's just lost his two parents and needs a bit of support. So I do that, and I'm like, grief, of course. Of course, it's meant to be grief. So then I'm like, I had pure clarity of what my purpose was, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to work in grief. But again, it took me a bit of time to figure out specifically how I could do that, because at first it was like, well, obviously bereaved parents, yeah, that makes sense. And I was like, yeah, but what about everyone else? And it's like, all right, well, everyone who's bereaving. And I was like, all right, but then what about people who are just grieving the dream that was in the head that they've had to give up on, because they're still grieving even though nothing in this physical world has happened? They've just had a dream in the head that they had grief. I said, so you can't just do that. It's got to be the whole spectrum of grief so that everyone can have an opportunity. And then then that's where I met you in the
Yeah.
journey, and
Yeah.
I brought grief alchemy through, and yeah, that's where I'm at now. And it's just been this. The last bit of the story is yesterday. I get to yesterday, my phone starts pinging off, and I'm looking at the messages, and I'm like, why am I getting these messages? They're like sending you positivity today, this, that, and I'm like, why am I getting multiple of these today? Yeah, and I looked at the calendar. It was my son's anniversary, so I stop and I'm like, the first thought I had is, if this was at a different time and point, your human would start beating itself up. What? You forgot his anniversary? How terrible of you as a mother to not even da 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 da. So that isn't happening, and I'm still sitting there and I'm waiting for my human to start going, you bad this, you bad that, rare, rare, rare. It don't happen. So I'm like, okay, this is weird because I'm expecting that. It didn't happen. So then I'm sitting with it and I'm like, wagwan here. And I just said, you know what? The first time I lost my son, it became my narrative, it became my story. My whole year was based around it. When's his anniversary coming up? What am I going to do for that? When's his birth? When's this? When's that? It was my whole narrative, yeah. Now, second time round, I work with my son in spirit. He's one of my spirit team, and I use him for my healing. So I'll connect with him every day, yeah. So I'm like, actually, you know, you honour him and you connect with him and you ceremony with him every single day. Does that mean that your human has to be locked into this trauma, chaos, kind of like negativity, even though it's honouring and it feels good? So I just sat in that moment and I was like, you know what? I'm so proud of myself that I'm that in the present moment, that I'm not bringing trauma from the past with me. The thing wasn't even there. I didn't even realise I'm getting all of this. And I'm like, why are you doing this? And then when I realised, I was like, raw. That literally is showing how you bring trauma forward into a present moment, how you carry it forward. And that actually, I hadn't done that. And I was like, but you know what? Does that mean I've disrespected him? No, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a ceremony up in the spot. I'm going to decide what I want to do in his honour right now. Instead of like before, it had been like 3 months of planning, trying to get it perfect, da 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 da. I was like, bam, it's in my awareness. I'll just go and hold a ceremony to honour him. And it was just this epiphany of how much easier and more gentle and fun the whole experience of grief and bereavement. And then I was like, what, after 2 years? Because if I look back to the 2 years after the first you, I'm like, wow. And I was like, you know what? That's the power of choice. And not only is it the power of choice, it's the power of having the right tools and knowledge. Because if I didn't have the right tools and knowledge, I would have held it the same way, because that's all I know. And it was this thing of like, it's so good that you invested in yourself. It's so good that you got this other knowledge. It's so good that you unpicked trauma, because look at you now. You're not carrying trauma from moment to moment. I'm in this moment and that's it. And I was like, yeah. So yesterday I just had this real epiphany of like how different it was. So that's why I'm saying that's what power is, because without that power and without that self-investment, I would have had the same life experience but a totally different journey.
Yeah,
It's the power of choice.
absolutely. Wow. Wow. Can we just take a minute? Do you know what? Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I was thinking along the way, I don't even think I've got like questions, because I'm thinking you've shared so deeply, and like, yeah, it's just, I just want to take a moment to take it all in. And even what I really admired and loved is this, and I think you do this really well, is you integrate the human and the spirit. Because I think there's always this danger, and I'm thinking I've done it myself, where, like you said, we can live out here somewhere when we go, oh, do you know, oh, love and light,
Yeah.
we're all up here. But it's like, I remember when I thought, oh no, we have to bring this down through the body and live it, move with it, like you say. it's we connect and we bring it down. It's like heaven on earth, isn't it?
Yes, that's
That,
100% what it is. And if you don't, like you say, if you don't allow it to come through, you use it as medicine, see what it teaches you, and then gift it out to the world, heaven on earth, sharing. And like, that's the perfect way to say it. It is heaven on earth. When we don't bring it down, it's a fairy tale like frenzy, because when I used to live like that, I just was spinning around. I had no real direction. I was like, I was flowing and I was in intuition and I was creating, but where am I going?
yeah,
I'm
and you're
just like
right.
spinning.
And it's because you talk about duality as well. It's like we do need the both. We need both of them, you know.
100, because again, if you're just in your human and with no spirit and no dream and no vision, you're depressed, you're autopilot, you're rat racing. So it's again, it's both need each other, because if you look at people who are only anchored in human,
Mm.
they're
Yeah,
not very happy. Or
because it's I call it like the trilogy because it is the duality, but it's the space in between.
yes, it's
It's that
where it's
space,
the
but it's
middle
where they
finger.
meet. It's where they meet, isn't it? So I'm going to just have a look in the comments section because I can
Yeah.
see some things coming up. So we've got Juniper Rose. Thank you so much for being so authentic and raw. She was. You were. You're always so authentic and raw.
Always.
Love
I
it.
can't do anything else.
She also said that gave me so many light bulb moments. Thank you. It
Oh,
gave me light bulb moments as well. And Barbara says, thank you. That is beautiful to hear about your journey. And Julita says, such a journey. Thank you for sharing. It is. It's such a beautiful story. And I think um, I'll share a little bit of my experience with you actually,
yeah, yeah.
because I had a session with you and it was funny because I just went with it because you told me what you was doing and I was like, I ain't even really got any grief.
Oh no, that's the first
Like,
thing you said to me. I ain't got no grief, and then in the
I'm
first
like,
next one, it was like, well, actually, maybe
yeah,
you've
so
got
I
me
just
thinking
thought,
through it.
but being connected and in tune, there was something in me that was just saying, just go and do it, go and see. And again, it's for me, it was a teaching about grief because it's like it's not just my grief that I had that I didn't even label as grief actually, but there was ancestral grief
Hmm.
and collective grief that
Hmm.
was held in my body. And it was such a powerful, like it was, wasn't it? It was such a
Yeah.
powerful session. And then the integration afterwards was really beautiful. So it's like, yeah, if you happen to be out there and you think, you have to go and do grief work when you have had some sort of loss. Not true. I was feeling cool. I thought I was good, but it's like when you go looking and you're like, oh, you found the grief.
Yeah, 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 and that's like what I've realised in through going through that experience. I'm able to find the grief that you, like you said, you didn't label it, and this is because on a societal level we don't have grief intelligence. But yeah, it was really funny how we found it, any.
Yeah, yeah, and it shifted like certain blocks. That was really good for me.
Yes, it was.
Um, but yeah. So, hang on. So, Barbara's saying, I just joined. How do I release old grief when I find it hard to cry or feel my emotions? I intuitively see that stuff is leaving, but I find it difficult to express it. So, do you have any advice for Barbara on that?
I say the question to me again.
So, she said, let's say, how do I release old grief when I find it hard to cry or feel in my emotions? I intuitively see that stuff is leaving, but I find it difficult to express it.
Okay, so I feel I need to know, does she feel like she needs to express it? Does she feel like she needs to cry? Because she doesn't necessarily need to do those things, but if she's being called to cry or express through sharing a story,
Mhm.
then it will tailor how I need to answer the question. So, does she just want to know? Because, like, I've got ways in which there's no talking, you don't even need to cry. So, does she want a way to release it, or does she want to know how to lock into the crying? Do you get what
Okay.
I mean? I'm not quite sure
Yeah.
what the question is,
Yeah, absolutely. I think
and I want
she's
to make
watching.
sure
So.
I answer it properly.
Okay. So, Barbara, I don't know if you want to share in the comment section, or you could also private message Monique.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
happy to have a virtual coffee so I can
yeah,
hear it a bit because, like I say, I don't want to just answer what I think because there's a discrepancy and I know I'm not getting it
absolutely.
clearly.
Absolutely. So there's another. Angelita's put grief intelligence question mark. Never heard that before, but truly get it.
Yes, and that,
Yeah.
and again, it's just I just make these things up, and that's basically as the concept that as a society, especially in the West, we don't know how to relate, process, accept, acknowledge, move past grief. It's very much like a mourning way. It's like you just gotta
Yeah.
mourn, you gotta be sad, you gotta this, you gotta that, and it's like actually it can be so much more fun and playful and celebration and
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
So
not only that but honouring, because in society it's a luxury to grieve, and this is what's really annoying me, that it shouldn't be, oh well, if I've got a good job and the boss lets me have some time off because my mum's just died, and then other people have to go back because they're gonna lose, like, what, you like really got the choice to either just eat or grieve, and it's like people, because they have to worry about going to work and getting the money in, they don't have the, I was like, how can it be a luxury to grieve? When I actually sat with it and thought about it, I was like, this is why people ain't grieving, because people just got to get up and go back to work, or same like with me, and I was a single parent, and I've got kids to do, I've got the school and I've got dinners to cook. Like, when exactly am I meant to grieve up in here? Because I've got so much stuff to do, and that's why I just decided that I'm going to create a safe space for people to grieve, because I don't see where it is, like, and like I say, in a healthy, conscious way, in a way that actually
mm,
leaves you whole and zestful. That's why I called the business Zestful Being, because I'd like to think of myself as an example that you can be zestful after even such a big grief as losing a child. You can still, if you be present with your journey, get back to being a zestful, whole person again, even though you had such a big fragment.
absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree. Barbara's come back and said, I want to release it. I was thinking that I had to cry to release it.
Um, I would say, from my own experience, while yes, it is good to tap into your emotions and cry, energetically and even emotionally, you do not have to force tears if they're not there to release. Just because you cry, and even when you cry, doesn't mean you've released either. Because you
Mm,
might just be having a little cry, but it doesn't mean the thing's shifted. So, yeah, I'd be looking to evaluate the connection between crying and releasing, because I don't think they necessarily always come together as a pair.
yeah,
So, what was the rest of the
absolutely.
question? Was that
No,
just
that was it. That was it.
so
I want to.
I would advise, just as a real quick one to release grief, is to ask your body where the grief is stored. Same principle that I did with you. Ask your body where the grief is stored. Give feeling and imagery. Is it like a box? Is it a square? Does it feel tight? Like, give it an image. What
Mhm.
does it look like? Then ask yourself what you would like it to, the opposite to be, what you want instead, because this is another thing people don't do. Yeah, release. Yeah, yeah, go on. But what are you putting in its place? You got to put something in the place. You don't just release and leave an empty space. So decide what you want in exchange, and then my go-to is sit in silence or with music and just ask the ancestors to come and gift you what you have asked for. And it's just about identifying it and deciding what you want instead. It
That's
can be as
amazing.
simple as that.
She said that is so helpful. Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. And I did a short Facebook live about that the other day, about this idea of releasing. Because people will go, I'm releasing, but I'm thinking, but then are you coming back to yourself?
Yeah,
Connect it back, because I'm thinking you can release all day long, and you can go off with the release. you know, come back to you. The whole point is that you connect more to your essence and who you are, and to really embody that and expand in that.
That's what
But
I
people
thought.
just, they're just like this.
All
But it's
day,
like
every day.
do that and then come back and embody.
Exactly, because isn't the point of releasing to create the space for all the good stuff that is not coming in because of the thing that we're releasing? So if you don't then marry the release with the calling in and, like you say, embodying the new normal and integrating, like you say, what are you doing? I don't know, but I've been that person before, so it's like,
Same, no judgment, no judgment, same. Because it dawned on me, I'm thinking that that was me, because you see, especially, you know, with the full moon and this,
yeah,
that, crystal and sage, everything's about release negative energy, release.
I
But no
know.
one's talking about, okay, what happens when you release everything? Like,
And
what about
that's
all of this?
exactly, and that's why in my session for grief alchemy, there is that integration support and period,
Mm,
and it's not negotiable. It's built into the thing because you need that integration time on the other side after a release, because it takes
absolutely.
time for the energetics and then your human to catch up with your new normal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you said that, because these are the things that I'm wanting to talk about more with regards to healing and how people approach it. Because I think, because it's come, like, healing's like, it's beautiful that it's more available and it's more out there, but it's also become a bit gimmicky
Yeah, yeah,
as
yeah.
well, and fashionable. And it's like, healing's no joke. It's not
You
just
run.
something like, I'm just gonna go to, it's no joke. You know, once you start healing, that going on that journey, you open up in a can of worms. So it's like, what I talk about is, you know, like the understanding, like, understand what you're doing. Do you have your resources? Because don't, like, I'm not a big fan of just letting people, like I used to be, you know, let anybody just put their hands on me and, you
Yeah,
know, do
yeah,
what.
yeah.
I'm like, side high, no, don't offer me healing. I know where to, you know, I can do it myself, or I've got people that I go
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'll sigh out, because I'm thinking, once you understand energy and how it works, you're not just going to let anybody put you. And then, not only that, understanding what is healing, because everybody wants to heal, but then has very little understanding of what that actually means.
Everyone wants the outcome, no one wants to walk the path. You just want to get to
Right,
the destination, but do you want to get your feet muddy?
right. So
No.
it's like, do you understand that? Have you got the resources so that if you have a meltdown or trauma comes up, because some, and this is no judgment, because this has been my journey, and I've I've probably, you know, held space for people that I shouldn't have, and people have held space for me that they shouldn't have
Yeah.
as well. So there's no judgment. It's just all learning. But it's like, people are holding space for people, laying hands, crystals, and that, bringing up trauma, and then not being able to deal with it, and the person not being able to deal with it and not knowing what's going on with them,
Oh,
or
do you
going to
know,
do
for the
medicine and then losing it because they haven't got the resources.
I'm glad you've brought this, and I know you've got to get off, but it's here, so let's do it. For the last 6 months, I've been having a real problem with this. A real problem with people opening up the portal for healing, not knowing what they're doing, and then not only is it a consequence for those two people, but then, like, say, when we're in a tent, and now what? Now we're all meant to be at risk of this unintegral behaviour, and it's like you say, people, and especially when we get into the energetics and things like that, people don't know what they're doing, and things are just coming in left, right, and centre. And then, yeah, for the last 6 months, I've had a real problem in being in these. I've called them not safe spaces, because they
Mm-hmm.
say they're safe spaces, and you get in there and you're looking at how they're opening the space, how they do, and you're like, I ain't putting my energy into that, because
Right, right. It's not, and you can. I think once you've done a level of work, you just know. You know, you sense, you see, you know, and you just like,
and then, like you say, why do we know? Because we've done that ourselves before. Because we want to
absolutely.
help and because we want to heal. We're like, I haven't quite, but I want to do. And it's like you say, we thought it was a good thing, but now with our higher knowledge, it's like, actually, wow. And then that's
Mm,
why now we can spot it, because we've done it. So
absolutely, absolutely. And it's like, And this is why the way I approach my work now, and this is through my own learning, is I'm not like it's the empowerment is you do the work.
Yeah.
I'm not doing like I stopped doing this passive healing
Yeah.
where you're just going to sit there and I'm just going to fix you. No,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I know for certain people need that level of comfort and nurturing and stuff like that, and that's okay. It's just not for me. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? 'Cause I'm thinking you need to know your body and how to take charge and look after yourself so that when you leave me, you're still okay
You can
and
still
you've
do
got the
it. Yeah. Yeah.
tools to look after yourself.
I totally agree because it doesn't build up that reliance on needing you to fix because I'm teaching you to fix yourself.
Exactly, exactly. Sorry, I can see there's some let's see. Yeah, so Juniper Rose says we spoke about this, Shireen. Integration is everything. Absolutely, because that's even another topic. But I'm thinking I'm going to
Yeah.
have to go soon, so I won't be able
Yeah,
to get
yeah,
into
yeah.
that.
Well, come, yeah, let's please do it though. Let's come back and do the talk on it because
Yeah,
integrity and integration is a massive thing that needs to be talked about.
absolutely, absolutely. Angelita's put beautifully put. We need to have balance. I need time to integrate what has changed. Loving this conversation with you two lovelies. Thank you, Juniper Rose. I refer to things as Google healers. Info is
Google
so
Healer.
available, but the dynamics run very deep. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Ashley, night. I can't wait to watch this in full tonight.
Oh, enjoy.
Angelita, such an important discussion here. Google healers can be dangerous in some places. Absolutely. Integrity is paramount. We need to be and feel safe. Thank you both. You are welcome.
You're
Juniper
welcome.
Rose, I agree. I've had to make some big decisions about healing in huge circles now because I've seen that the energies just ain't right. I can't do bus stop healings.
No.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can't like, yeah, it can't. And don't get me wrong, because I'm thinking I've been in those circles where it's just, and it's like when you, it's like you're opening up somebody's energy field, like, and that it's, and then the space around you is just,
It's
it can't work.
bizarre. It's crazy. The
For
things
me,
I've witnessed.
yeah, for me, it just felt, I can't, how can I, knowing what I know, like I
Yeah,
can't
have
do
your
that.
energy feed into it. It's like, no, I'm not gonna do it, and it's just like now I just get up and walk out. Whereas before, my humanness would be like, oh, it's rude. Da, da, da. Now I
Yeah,
just pick up my things and I go. I'm like, I
no,
don't care who gets
absolutely.
offended. I'm
Because
going.
it's like the minute you stay, I think that this is where the connection's made because then you're compliant and
You've give
you're in
consent.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You've
I mean,
literally
and then
given
that's more work
consent.
you've got to do then. But do you know what? I'm gonna stop there because I'm thinking I've got to pick up my daughter. But what I want to do just before we go
Yeah.
is I want you to share with the people your sacred offerings and where they can find you. And I know you can send
I'll
me
give
those
you the link.
the
Yeah,
links.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm in the process of doing my graphic designer and getting all the rest of the things set up. So instead of feeling like I can't answer because I'm not there, the sacred offering that I've got on at the moment is Grief Alchemy Immersion, and it is a 2 week package to deep dive into your grief and what's holding you back. It's a 2 hour session, two integration sessions, and you also get unlimited voice note support for the 2 weeks so I can help hold and integrate the journey. So that is the sacred offering I've got. I will give you a link because I've got a link to book that. I also have a link to book a chat with me. So if there's anything you're interested, you want to know more of, you want to get more details before you feel confident to purchase, I will give you another link so that you can book a free 15-minute chat and coffee and we just talk and see what can run. And then the only place to find me right now is on my own personal socials because I'm waiting for the graphics. So I'm going to give you my personal link so that if you still do want to follow, even though it's not on my business link, you can start connecting with me that way. So they are the 3 ways to get in touch in this present moment.
Thank you so much. And let me tell you, I'm a testimony. The girl is on point.
Thanks,
She's a
babe.
beautiful, powerful healer. So yes, if you feel the calling, do get in touch with her. Monique, thank you so much. You know what? We've not actually met in person. We're meeting soon, but we've not actually met in person yet. But you know what? I've got such a beautiful connection with you. I think you're such a beautiful, bubbly, lively person. I absolutely love you. Thank you for coming here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to receive all of that and then I'm going to give you thanks in return because for not your reflection, because you, as you know, you was the only black person who read the journey of birth and grief alchemy. Yeah, just giving thanks and not only for grief alchemy, but how that helped me see the blackness within and then allowed me to unleash all of that into the world. So thank you for being that black mirror for me who helped me unleash my black power. Eternally grateful.